So I'm Athol from Cape Town in South Africa. And for the first 24 years of my life, I lived under apartheid. And so what Jenny has described, what Michael has described, and what everyone knows about the realities of life under apartheid, I lived through every day. At the age of 15, I strangely didn't play cricket or soccer, I played baseball. And was selected for the national baseball team. I couldn't understand why I didn't get a Springbok jersey for being a South African national. And someone explained to me that as a coloured child, as I was then classified, I couldn't play for the Springboks. I couldn't get real Springbok colours. I wasn't a real South African. And so we'd have a little fake tournament because that's how it was. At the age of, as a growing up, as a teenager, I understood that my schooling was separate from the schooling of white children. We had separate education departments. My schooling was designed to be a factory worker or to be a labourer. Jenny talked about District 6 and reflected Norman Kaplan's art. My mother grew up, and her family grew up in District 6, and in 1966 the apartheid government decided District 6, every person of colour had to be removed from District 6, and so my mother's family was included. And they all got dumped in an area called Mitchell's Plain, which was just a bunch of dunes, one road in, one road out. Today there are 1 million people now in this ghetto where I grew up. There are 50 primary schools, 1 million people, to give you a sense of the scale of this ghetto. It's the second largest ghetto in South Africa after Soweto, which is in Johannesburg. So I grew up in this context where everything around me told me I was a second-class citizen because of apartheid. The beaches I could go to were defined by colour. The restaurants I could go to, the universities I could go to, the schools I could go to, the jobs I could go to, who I could date was defined by law. In South Africa we had the Immorality Act, which said if I dated a white woman, that would be an act of immorality, punishable by imprisonment for both myself and for her. So that was the context. And so I had experiences, some of the cliched experiences of boarding a bus in Johannesburg, not knowing it was a whites-only bus, of needing to travel from Braamfontein in Johannesburg to Roodepoort. And of course I grew up in Cape Town, but now in Johannesburg, didn't know which buses were which. And so I got into this bus, climbed the stairs very slowly, only for the bus driver to kind of look at me and say, you can't get on this bus. So as an 18-year-old, I was kind of confused by this. And I had the white fare, and I showed him the fare, and he kind of said, nope, you can't be on this bus. And I looked around me, everyone in the bus was white. People behind me all agitated and also all white. And so to take those 3 or 4 steps down, back out the bus slowly, breaks something within you as a young person, believing in your possibility, believing what life holds, but having to face that indignity. I then went on to, because of education being such an act of deprivation and oppression, I responded and probably overshot in my response by earning 7 university degrees, including a PhD from Oxford, got master's degrees from Harvard, from Oxford, from MIT, from the London Business School, London School of Economics. But in that process, I then became marked as an enemy. And so even at Wits University, my dormitory room got invaded by the police and I was beaten up just because, right? And so those are the reality of those experiences. And so when Nelson Mandela was released in 1990, I was a second-year engineering student and had just begun writing poetry. Now for an engineering student, you don't expect writing poetry, but there I was and found this as an outlet. And since then I've published 7 books of poetry. I've written 20 books overall of different genres. And now I'm a professor at Oxford University at the Business School now. But I want to share with you this poem as a 20-year-old in 1990, and what my reaction was, having lived through apartheid and Nelson Mandela being free. It's called New South Africa. Shine brightly, our new South Africa, while the world lies in political slumber. Arise and inhale the freshness of a new era. Swallow the energy the sun shines on you. Drink the cleansing the heavens pour on you, and polish the gold the earth offers you. break loose from the shackles of this power-hungry humanity and fly off to a society of peace and love, where a climate of tranquility and harmony prevails. Plant your newly freed seed in fertile soil, and let your prosperity be a light to this darkened world. And at the beginning of this new day, put on your white silk cloak, purify your hands, mouth, and mind, and sing sweetly to your loyal people. A new day, a new dawn, a new South Africa is born. And so for those literary experts around us, I know there's 50 pages of criticism of that poem, but I like referring to it because it just showed the innocence, the sense of positivity that prevailed in South Africa. I marched, and like Michael said, I'd never seen pictures of Nelson Mandela, but I marched, free Nelson Mandela. And so I was through these long queues in 1994 for the first time voting in the 1994 elections. So fast forward, from that point, the optimism of having suffered under apartheid and the optimism of the fall of apartheid, to November 2021, as Michael mentioned, where I packed a bag, in November 21, packed a bag and left South Africa under threat from my life, and came to the UK alone without my family, without anyone knowing about me coming here, and coming to the UK in hiding. Because 8 months earlier, I'd taken the decision to stand up and publicly expose the corruption and state capture I'd experienced and seen and witnessed and saw evidence of in South Africa. And so there was this widespread attack on South Africa's democratic institutions. And so for me, it wasn't just being a whistleblower. For me, it was continuing the work of Nelson Mandela and Walter Sisulu and Ovada Gallery of freeing our country from capture, from oppression. And I felt I was continuing that work with the way I was doing it. I felt Nelson Mandela, he was alive, couldn't do the work I could do. And so it was an act of continuing the struggle for South Africa's freedom. And so for 2 full days, I testified at this commission, where the commission grilled me on the evidence I produced. I produced 700 pages of evidence showing the massive network of corruption that tried to bring down South Africa's institutions and loot billions and billions. And so just so you know, the plan was to disable, across the entire government, disable the oversight abilities in our government. So people would come and at will then loot and do whatever they wanted. And I exposed, many others exposed it as well, but I was a key witness to expose this. At the end of the commission, the Chief Justice of South Africa, who oversaw the commission, wrote in his report acknowledging the key role I played in linking the former President Zuma to political parties and into many multinational corporations, and thanked me for foregoing the large sums of money I was offered for my silence. But then very soon, within a few months of me testifying, a fellow whistleblower got assassinated outside her home. Now I began getting threats and warnings. My lawyer in South Africa got a message where they described exactly where the poison was stored. The old apartheid poison was stored that they used to kill me. People in government said, you're hearing your name in all the wrong circles, all the wrong ways. And there was enough credible evidence that says that people were going to try and assassinate me. And so I decided to leave the country. The very country that I'd given everything for to support its institutions. But that isn't the tragedy. The tragedy for me was the fact that the South African government wouldn't support me, wouldn't protect me. And I think this is the tragedy of South Africa today, because we can celebrate the fall of apartheid, and we say, well, what's the reality of people living in South Africa today? And isn't one of the euphoria of celebration of freedom, of human rights being celebrated? In fact, it's quite the opposite. I wrote to President Ramaphosa, the current president, on 9 different occasions, saying, you know who I am, he knows my name, he's used my name because of my testimony and the evidence provided, saying, I'm in danger, can you support me, can you provide protection? No reply. 3 separate South African ambassadors went to see the president. Ambassador Tendi Tambo, who was Oliver Tambo's daughter, the South African ambassador to Spain, and our current High Commissioner in the UK, Kingsley Morolo, have been to see the President or the Ministry of Justice, and have all refused to offer me any support. And so my interpretation of that is our current government supports this fact that the whistleblowers who spoke up against corruption said capture should be silenced. And so I want to read a short poem on which I want to offer an explanation of what's gone wrong and what's gone in South Africa. We go from these amazing leaders like Nelson Mandela to what's happening in the country today. It's called Code of Ethics. I've got a family to feed. I'm just doing what anyone in my position would do. I deserve this. It is owed to me. Besides, if they can do it, why shouldn't I? I'm just doing what anyone in my position would do. After all, I deserve this. It is owed to me. If they can do it, why shouldn't I? I've also got a family to feed. I deserve this. It is owed to me. So if they can do it, why shouldn't I? I've got a family to feed. And I'm just doing what anyone in my position would do. If they can do it, why shouldn't I? I've got a family to feed. And I'm just doing what anyone in my position would do. I deserve this. It is owed to me. And within that poem, it's obviously 4 lines that are repeated. I believe there are 4 of the justifications of evil that man dreams up. There are 4 of the justifications of evil that man dreams up. The one is, I'm not committing this evil for myself. It's for others. It's for a greater good. Right? We talk about what's happening in the Middle East and Israel saying they're protecting the West. Right? What they're doing is not about Israel, it's about protecting the West from terrorists. But what's happening in South Africa now, there's a sense of self-entitlement or greed among some who are saying, I've got a family to feed, and so I'll steal, I'll loot, I'll commit these hideous crimes because it's owed to me. Right? I suffered many years of apartheid, and so therefore it's owed to me, and so I can rightfully steal. Another justification of evil is where, if they can do it, why shouldn't I? Right? And that's going on a lot. It started with, well, the white apartheid leaders stole, why shouldn't we? Or now it goes through the system of some of those senior black leaders are stealing, why shouldn't I? And then lastly, this idea, well, if you're in my position, you do the same thing, right? And I think in South Africa we are saying, well, right, we all suffered many, many times, and so we should carry on this corruption. And so I think that's part of what's justifying this behavior. But I want to end, before Michael tells me to shut up. So here I am, in exile, getting on. My family eventually joined me. While I'm here, amazing people like Tricia, like Lord Peter Hayne, offered me support and welcome, gave me a sense of home, made me not feel as mad, as crazy as everyone else had said. It was incredible. I was a senior lecturer at the University of Cape Town, teaching business ethics. And academics are often criticized for living in ivory towers and not acting on what they teach. That's what I did. I actually acted in what I taught. And the university told me to leave. So I lost my job at the University of Cape Town because I'd taken this ethical stand. And so my mental health just deteriorated because basically in my world, I'd done something wrong. Think about how we teach our children. You do good, you get rewarded. You do bad, you get punished. Well, I was getting punished. So obviously the truth was something was bad in my society. And when I got here, myself and Lord Peter Hayne, joined forces to keep campaigning for accountability. We went and campaigned. We went to the House of, to Cabinet Office. We met with politicians to hold companies accountable for what was going wrong in South Africa. And I think the international community needs to keep doing that. We must celebrate the fall of apartheid, but I think we must keep focusing on the human rights of people there right now, which are being denied systematically. So I'll close with this poem, and it's a poem of celebration again, because that's what keeps me going. I continue, as many of us continue, in the belief that that South Africa we dreamed of, that South Africa that I dreamed of as a 20-year-old is still there, it's still waiting for us, but it requires people to act and to do something about it. So this poem is called A New South African Story. Let's tell a new story, a new South African story. Let it stampede down the streets, gallop across open fields, tumble into gardens through gateways, and swing from branch to wire, and trickle its way down columns and pillars of power. Let's tell a story of many streams flowing into one new river. A story not of having more and pressing down, but taking less and lifting up. A story of bringing us hope that brings us joy that gets us to our feet, that makes the sun shine even in the deepest darkness of the coldest winter. A story that lifts our eyes to the heavens, that makes our hearts somersault, our spirits gyrate in delight. Even if crooked in grammar or spoken with twisted words, or commas and capitals that strangle the verbs, let's tell our story. In hip-hop, poem or prose, foreign or mother tongue, on paper or flag from rooftop hung, let's tell our story. This new freedom story that bursts through the walls inside as the cries of our fathers and the songs of our mothers rumble in our veins. This story that needs to be told, that needs to flow, that needs to pour, that needs to rise to fill the emptiness that others have made and seek to hold. A story that reminds us that we are whole, a people with standing, a people with dreams, a people with stories. Let's flood the roads of greed and the highways of hatred with this new story. Let's pour it into the dams, into the lakes. Let's top up the streams and springs, pipe it into the fountains, channel it to the oceans, and speak it to the clouds, so when it rains, the reality of our dreams pour in torrents. That we may be free, our hearts unchained. That we may live as one, the walls torn down. That we eat together, our plates all filled. That we may become a great new nation. Let's tell this story, this new South African story. Thank you.